It's been almost 6 months since switching to a MacBook Pro after being a lifelong Windows user. And while I'm still satisfied with my choice, it hasn't been a completely smooth ride. So today, as a form of talk therapy, I'm gonna share all the things I still don't like about using a MacBook Pro. So let's jump right in. Now, before I even learned what I didn't like about using a MacBook, I learned that I didn't like the process of buying a MacBook. It's surprisingly hard to buy the right one without spending hundreds of extra dollars. On my other channel, I talk about all the gear I use to grow my YouTube channels, so anyone following me over there knows what I've been through. But long story short, when the M3 Max came out at the end of 2023, I bought my first one with the M3 Pro MacBook Pro. It was nice, but it wasn't powerful enough for how I edit videos. I then shelled out the extra bucks for the M3 Max MacBook Pro, and that thing was awesome, but it was too expensive. I returned both of those and ultimately decided on the M1 Max MacBook Pro, and that's what I'm using now. What a pain to get here. It took me a lot of time and energy to figure out what I actually needed, why I needed it, and how to spend the appropriate amount of money. This was $3,000 Canadian and works great for me. The M3 Max was $6,000. It was amazing, but not an extra $3,000 amazing. Apple kind of just wants you to think you should spend more money to make sure you have enough, since you can't really upgrade these things later on. So yeah, I don't like that it's so hard to figure out exactly what to buy without overbuying. Okay, on to what I don't like about actually using my MacBook Pro. First, resizing Windows sucks. Without installing any additional apps, the way the apps size themselves makes no sense to me. It's either smaller windows that open at random, it seems, or using apps in full screen. Do most people really use the green button with all their apps and use them like that, then just switch between them via swipe or the app manager? I don't get it. I eventually found an app called Rectangle, which is much better and allows me to quickly snap apps where I want them on the screen, but it's not perfect. For example, even if I set it up to double click the title to full screen, which is how I like it, it doesn't go full screen completely. Like, look what happens when I put my mouse to the far right edge of the full screen to grab the scroll bar. It misses it. It leaves a tiny gap. It's annoying. Windows full screen means that the scroll is on the edge of the screen and you can still get to the start bar and the menu's up top. Apple full screen has a different meaning. It hides everything. Maybe I'm still getting used to it. I don't love it. Also, I still hate trying to minimize all the apps quickly because sometimes I just need to get to the desktop now. And while there are some shortcuts that almost work, I haven't found a solution that works for me yet besides minimizing everything one by one. Like, I have it set to when I click down here, I can hide everything on the screen, which is great, but the moment I click anywhere besides the exact file that I want, everything comes rushing back in. And like I mentioned, sometimes shortcuts like Control Options H and M work, though A, good luck remembering that shortcut, and B, it doesn't always work and minimize everything. Next, the keyboard shortcuts for copy and paste turned my life into a living hell. Look, I'm sort of used to it now, but it came at a price. I had brutal hand pain for months. I'm talking debilitating, soul-crushing thumb pain to the point I couldn't even move my thumb backwards without assisting it with my other hand. I was legit scared for the future of my thumb dexterity. Out of desperation, I started rearranging my whole workstation so I could get an ergonomic keyboard and find shortcuts to fix that pain. Luckily, months later, through rehabbing my thumb, I am better, but geez, that sucked. I still don't love the default copy and paste keyboard shortcuts, but I've almost gotten used to them. Same with using Control D as a delete key, which I use all the time. I did order an insane keyboard that I'll be able to create custom buttons on, but it takes a long time to arrive. Hopefully, it'll be worth it. Review of that keyboard is incoming. I really don't like how the files organize themselves in Finder. Like, sometimes I just drag things wherever to get the job done fast, but then they stay where I put them. Okay. So I right click, clean up the folder. It just organizes the mess. Then I sort by kind, and that's what I want in the first place. But I have to do that all the time. I do not like how Finder sorts files. Maybe there's a better way. Please let me know if you know. I much prefer my sorting files by file type as the default. I want all my pictures to be together, all my text documents, just want them all to be hanging out. I hate it when it mixes them all at random. Do you know what I mean? Is that unreasonable of me? I don't know. Okay, this is a funny one. I really don't enjoy how sharp the edge of the MacBook Pro is. I don't notice it when it's on my lap or on a table, but when I'm lying down and using it, this edge is like a cheese grater on my skin. The metal is so strong and sharp, which is great, but in this case, it's like a knife I keep sliding my wrists over. Like in movies, you know when somebody's wrists are tied together with a rope and they have a knife and they're trying to cut the rope to get out? That's what using this feels like when I'm lying down. The reflective screen is brutal. Oof. To be fair, a lot of Windows machines that have OLED screens will also have this problem, but there's no option for a matte screen that I know of, and this thing is like a frickin' mirror. If there's a window behind you or bright light, yeah, enjoy using this laptop there. You can't just sit anywhere you want and use it. You have to be mindful of what's behind you, otherwise you can't see. Gaming isn't great. Not only is there no dedicated graphics cards or the ability to use eGPUs, come on Apple, that'd be rad. There are not a lot of gaming options when you open up Steam. Hey, Steam is on here, which is great, but most of the games don't even install on the Apple OS. Luckily for me though, most of the games I play work natively on Mac, so it's not all bad, but sometimes I want to play something from my Steam library and I can't. It's annoying. Lastly, using a non-Apple mouse, in my case, the MX Master 3S mouse, has been a huge pain in the butt for a number of reasons. Where to begin? First, on a MacBook Pro, when you scroll a page with the trackpad, you sort of two-finger fling the trackpad up to scroll down, right? It feels great and natural. But when you pair a mouse with a scroll wheel, with the default setting active, it actually inverts the scroll wheel on the mouse because using the trackpad is actually the opposite of how we scroll with a mouse. With the trackpad, you fling content up to go down a page, but on the scroll wheel of a mouse, you scroll down to go down. The Mac operating system doesn't understand these are different. So when I invert the scroll in the settings, so my mouse works normally, then when I use the trackpad, it's reversed. So I had to find an app that would invert my mouse scroll wheel when using that, but also keep the trackpad with its original settings. So annoying. Luckily with the Logitech Options Plus app, it's easy to invert the mouse itself and not the computer. No biggie, I just had to learn the hard way. But then next, the scroll speed on my mouse is bananas on Mac for some weird reason. It scrolls like an extreme close-up with the smallest movement, 0 to 100. You'd think with the settings you could change the sensitivity, right? Nope, it does nothing. I eventually found an app called Linear Mouse, which actually helps, but it's still not perfect. I feel like I shouldn't have to install these apps to make things work. But maybe that's just my old muscle memory speaking up and I'm wrong. Oh, and another weird bonus thing about the screen, I never touch the screen, somehow it gets smudges on it. I think when the laptop closes itself, it touches the keys, and if there's any finger gunk or grease on the keys, it pushes it on the screen. So then when you open it up, I find I have to clean the screen a lot more than I feel like I should. Okay, whew, hey, talk therapy does work. I feel better. I know it seems like a lot of shade I'm throwing, and there are still a lot of things I didn't mention in this video, things like the lack of customization or issues a lot of people have with their peripherals. I mean, it almost sounds like I'm unhappy with my choice. Does this mean I don't like using a Mac and miss Windows? Of course not. Windows computers aren't perfect either, and the MacBook Pro is a beast of a machine. The portable power these things offer puts them in a league of their own. The battery, the power, the keyboard, the speakers, the build quality. Now, Apple computers aren't perfect, but as a lifelong Windows fan, it was hard for me to deny just how good they are at what they do. I mean, Apple's silicon chips changed the game for laptops. Even these M1 chips are still just amazing years later. They almost shot themselves in the foot by making the original M1s so good. However, it was a good call they did that because they've managed to hook people like me, people who would have never even considered a Mac, but because they're so good, I bought a used one and now I'm in the ecosystem. I made the switch and I'm still happy with it. What about you? Have you experienced any of the frustration I mentioned in the video? Or have you found solutions to most of those problems? I'd love to hear about your experience in the comments below. If you want to learn more about my journey from Windows to Mac and my experience with each one of the Apple laptops I bought, I'll link that playlist here. And in case you missed my first impressions video where I switched to a Mac full-time after 30 years of using Windows, check that out here. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you're able to comment, like, or subscribe to the channel, I'd really appreciate that, as that's the only way my channel can grow. We'll see you next time on The Sad Life. Dad!